Over the last few years, Oregon has had some great quarterbacks. Guys like Justin Herbert, Dylan Gabriel, Bo Nix, and now Dante Moore have been stars for the Ducks, and one of the main guarantees of the Oregon football program is that they're going to put out a good quarterback. But before Justin Herbert was a star for the Ducks, there was a player who broke records in the state of California, who is a phenom who was supposed to be the next big thing at Oregon. His name was Braxton Burmeister. As I said, he was one of the best quarterbacks in California high school football history, was so athletic that he was one of the fastest quarterbacks in the country, and many thought he could be the next big thing, but unfortunately, not only did he not really work out at Oregon, but he didn't work out at his next two schools either. In today's video, we're to talk about the phenom quarterback recruit to Oregon that you totally forgot about, and go through the rise and fall of Braxton Burmeister. But before we get started, if you're a big fan of college football, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you want to support today's video, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Now let's go ahead and get started and talk about Braxton Burmeister. Fall's here. Crisp air, football, maybe a bonfire too. But if you're like most guys, you're still putting in hard work, and yeah, that means sweat. But don't let body odor sideline you. That's where the sponsor of today's video comes into play, Mando. Mando was created by a doctor who saw firsthand how normal BO was being misdiagnosed and mistreated. It's a high-performance, whole-body deodorant that you can apply literally everywhere. What's actually really interesting is that Mando is clinically proven to control odors better than a shower than with soap alone. 12 hours after a shower, a man's normal odor level is at 5 out of 10. With Mando, on the other hand, it's literally a 0. What is even better is they have some awesome scents, as they have 4 signature blends that include Bourbon Leather, Clover Woods, Mount Fuji, and Pro Sport. Personally, I've been using the Bourbon Leather body wash, and that is absolutely awesome. And the Mount Fuji deodorant smells so good that it has me totally confident when I walk out the door each morning. Mando is also great because it doesn't stain your clothes. It's made with skin-safe ingredients, and unlike most traditional deodorants, it's more of a pre-odorant, so it's working ahead of time. Mando has made you a special offer because you watch this channel. The starter pack is perfect for new customers, as it comes with a full-size stick deodorant, a cream deodorant tube, or a spray deodorant, and 2 free products like wipes or a mini body wash. And how do you know that? Well, you can use the code that Mando gave me, which is SCOTTF, SCOTTF. If you want to smell good at your next tailgate or any sort of event, be sure to buy Mando products using my code so you can smell like me. Thanks again to Mando for sponsoring today's video. In order to talk about what happened to Burmeister, we first need to go back in time. Dan Burmeister was not keen on his sons playing football at an early age, as he knew all about the sport. Him and his brother Doug ended up playing college ball, as Dan was a safety at North Carolina in the mid-80s, and Doug was a running back from Maryland. Football ran in the Burmeister family, and at one point, Dan was even a replacement player for the Redskins during their strike in 1987. He preferred that both of his boys play other sports, but eventually the two brothers would decide they really wanted to play. Braxton was more of a basketball player at first, and he did not follow in his dad's path, but his mother actually organized the La Jolla Pop Warner Association, so eventually, Braxton Burmeister would see the field as a football player. His dad knew if that was going to happen, he would have to develop him. He ended up getting him a quarterback's coach, as he worked with former NFL quarterback Achilles Smith, who was at Oregon, and Jeff Garcia, both of which lived in the city of San Diego. Throwing things always came naturally for Braxton, whether it was baseball, football, or basketball. He threw the ball with ease and had insane accuracy for a young player. He was a pitcher on the diamond, a point guard on the hardwood, and a quarterback on the gridiron at a very early age. Achilles Smith, his trainer, recalls the first day that Burmeister arrived at a training session. He said that he was an absolute natural, and the two worked on footwork, balance, and passing mechanics. They would then meet 2 or 3 times a week, and Braxton was on the path to being a big-time football player. When they would go home, the father and son duo would watch film, and then at 8 years old, his goal was to become one of the best quarterback prospects in the country. His older brother Sage ended up playing at Idaho State as a wide receiver, so they got a glimpse into the recruiting world and proved they could make it at the next level of football. Braxton was a pretty insane athlete, and he said, quote, "By my sophomore or junior season, I realized I could take off and score from anywhere on the field." He also found out he could be a big-time recruit, as during his freshman season, he went to a camp at Florida, and Will Muschamp walked him into his office and offered him a scholarship. After that, the Arizona Wildcats would offer him, and as a high school sophomore, he already had 2 Power 4 major offers. Braxton was on the path. He had initially committed to Arizona back in 2014, but would then later reopen it and recommit again. It was kind of weird. His final candidates were Indiana, Utah, Washington, South Carolina, and San Diego State, but he was going to be a Wildcat. While he was at Country Day High School in La Jolla, California, he had passed for 4,448 yards and 53 touchdowns as a senior. Eventually, he would get more recruiting attention, as the new Oregon staff, led by head coach Willie Taggart, would flip him from Arizona to Oregon. Oregon's 2017 quarterback class was really weird, as originally they got Ryan Kelly to commit as he was an Army All-American, and because of that, they didn't really offer Tua and Tate Martell. Oregon, however, would finally have their answer, as they would eventually offer Braxton, and he would decide he could not pass up that offer, and he would commit to the Ducks. It was the offer that he always coveted, as he had grown up watching Dennis Dixon and Chip Kelly's high-powered offense, and he always saw himself in a Ducks uniform. He always wondered why the Ducks didn't offer him, and by his junior year, he was considered one of the best players on the West Coast, but not a whiff came from the Ducks. He doesn't remember a single conversation from the Oregon coaching staff, and he said he was mystified. Oregon then made that coaching change, though, as they hired Willie Taggart, and after adding Jimmy Doherty, a receivers coach from Michigan, he decided to go back to Burmeister because he recruited him while he was at Michigan, and that's ultimately how the offer would end up happening, and Burmeister was contacted, offered, and then committed. He would thrive in the San Diego high school football scene as he threw for 14,972 yards and 127 passing touchdowns. It was one of the best careers in San Diego football history, and according to 24/7 Sports, Burmeister was a 4-star recruit, the number 10 dual-threat quarterback, and the 299th best player in the class of 2017. So, how would Burmeister do at Oregon? Well, let's go ahead and take a look. So when Braxton arrived at Oregon, he was obviously going to be hyped up, but he arrived with little fanfare because there was no reason for him to see the field. He came into Oregon as the 5th-string quarterback, as guys like Terry Wilson, Justin Herbert, and Travis Johnson were currently on the roster. But everything would change. After injuries would happen, he was bumped from 5th on the depth chart to starter midway through his freshman season, and on his very first snap, he got hit so hard by Washington State linebacker Jahad Woods, he suffered a 3rd-degree AC sprain that he played through the rest of the season. He said, quote, "I told them I could go, and they shot me up before the game in the shoulder, and I could barely lift my shoulder over my head during the game. I was trying my hardest to get by, but I really couldn't throw the ball very far." He had to play before he was ready at Oregon, as he was handed the starting reins just 3 months after he arrived on campus. In total in 2017, he played in 7 games for Oregon. He started 5 of those games after Herbert broke his collarbone, and he finished going 44 of 77 with 2 touchdowns. The Ducks would go 1-4 over his 5 starts, but that doesn't make up for being young and inexperienced like he was. He said, quote, "I felt I could handle it, but it was definitely a tough situation. I'm grateful I got to learn and get better every game. I basically went from you're going to redshirt your first year to okay, you're the guy." As I said, Burmeister ended up having a couple of games as he threw for 330 yards with 2 touchdowns and 6 picks, but he did have 3 touchdowns on the ground. Going into 2018, Justin Herbert was once again back at quarterback, meaning that Braxton would take the sideline here and would be a backup. He'd end up appearing in 4 total games for the Ducks, going 5 of 10 for 43 yards. He also had a couple of carries on the ground, and he played the second half in their Civil War game against Oregon State. After the season was over, Taggart would end up leaving for Florida State, and with the offense going in a different direction under Mario Cristobal, Burmeister started to think about things and if he should transfer. He would decide to look for a new home, as him and his dad had done their research on a bunch of schools, but their initial list did not include Virginia Tech. They did not actually think about them until their old friends suggested the Hokies, and Justin Fuente's quarterback-friendly offense was exactly what Burmeister was looking for, and the more film that they would watch, the better he felt about the system. His dad said that Braxton had a PhD level of understanding when it came to football, and he was a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week football guy. He would end up trying to apply for a waiver to play immediately, but it didn't end up happening. There really wasn't a good reason, but at the same time, Tate Martell got a waiver for having no reason either, so they were somewhat optimistic. It would end up getting shot down, and just like that, his 2 years at Oregon were over, and he would now be starting over at Virginia Tech during the 2020 season, when things were really weird in college football. Burmeister would end up being a backup during his first year at Virginia Tech, as he ended up appearing in 5 games. His best performance came against Virginia, as he threw for 212 yards and a touchdown in that one. In total, he had just under 700 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and 2 rushing touchdowns. going into the 2021 season, it was going to be his time. Quincy Patterson and Hendon Hooker had both entered the transfer portal, so it looked like he was going to be QB1, and he was finally going to get his first real chance at being a big-time starter. But unfortunately, things were not always going to plan for him, as during a drill at Virginia Tech, a 350-pound lineman apparently stepped on his left foot, breaking 4 of his toes. This would end up affecting him a bit, but in 2021, Burmeister would start the entire season. He led them to an upset over number 10 UNC in his first game, and he had 2 touchdowns in that one. He continued on throughout the rest of the season, as his best 2 performances came against Georgia Tech and Duke, where he combined for 5 touchdowns in both of those games. In total, Burmeister threw for 1,960 yards, 14 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions, while also rushing for 521 yards and 2 touchdowns. It was pretty solid for a first-year starter, and many thought he could be even better going into 2022, but that's not what would happen. That was his only full season as a starter at Virginia Tech. He guided them to a 6-6 record, and would end up missing their bowl game against Maryland because he entered the portal again on December 20th. There was some upheaval in the Virginia Tech program, as Justin Fuente would end up being fired. He said he wanted to go somewhere where he could win for his final season, but I guess he also considered going back home. He said Mizzou, Cal, and some ACC schools became options for him, but he felt he had been away from San Diego for far too long. He would decide to commit to the San Diego State Aztecs, and that's where he would transfer for his final season. I mean, this guy was truly an athlete, and given the right circumstances, he could be a star. The fastest player on that 2021 Virginia Tech team was not a receiver, defensive back, or running back, but it was in fact Braxton, who ran 22.53 miles per hour. The top speed in the NFL during the 2021 season was Jonathan Taylor, who only reached 22.13 miles per hour. What I'm saying is, this guy was a crazy athlete. He'd end up playing his final season at San Diego State in 2022 and would only end up appearing in 6 total games. Burmeister threw for 263 yards with 2 touchdowns and 3 interceptions, with 1 more rushing score on the ground. I can't really figure out what happened, but he would not end up playing the full season, and now he would try to go off to the NFL. He actually moved to wide receiver and got an opportunity with the Los Angeles Rams, but on August 28th of 2023, Burmeister was officially cut, meaning he was pretty much done with football. I have no clue what he is up to now, but at one point, Burmeister was the next big thing for Oregon. Sadly, I think there were 3 factors why he did not end up panning out. As one, he was put into a horrible position at Oregon his first year, being both injured and not prepared to actually start as an 18-year-old. Secondly, he was affected by all the 2020 stuff, which messed up everything and changed every player's timeline. And thirdly, there was just no stability. He ended up sitting out all of 2019, barely played in 2020, was a backup, was a hurt freshman, and then after he could have continued at Virginia Tech, his coach was fired, meaning he just never was stable his entire 6-year career and was never able to settle into one spot. I think that truly does affect a quarterback, but Burmeister was definitely interesting. He's a name that not many people probably remember or talk about a lot, but I thought it'd be cool to spotlight his career, as at one point he was seen as the next big thing for the Ducks, and I hope he's doing well in his next stage of life. But what do you guys think? If you're an Oregon, Virginia Tech, or San Diego State fan, what went wrong for Braxton Burmeister, and who's another quarterback I could take a look at in my next video? Be sure to let me know down below, leave a like if you want to support today's video, subscribe if you're new, and check out one of the videos on the end screen. Hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.